Hey, everybody, I'm Scott Weichel. You're listening to My Kind of Country. Thanks so much for joining us on a Monday night. My guest this evening is one of the most famous and well known producers and engineers in all of country music. His hands and ears have touched some of the best music to ever come out of Nashville. And he's here tonight to share some of his great stories with us about some of the huge names that he has worked with from over the years. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. It's an honor for me to welcome Lou Bradley to My Kind of Country. Lou, how are you tonight?
I'm doing good. How about you, Scott?
Oh, just fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me tonight.
Well, we're going to talk about a great place for the most part. That's the Columbia Bee Studio, and it's also known as the Quonset Hut because that's what it was in, the Quonset Hut, and it was originally the Bradley Studio, Owen and Harold Bradley. And people ask me, "Are you kin to those Bradleys?" And I say, "No, they got the money and I got the good looks." That's stretching the truth.
I love
They're
it.
good folks, so, and
What years did you work there, Lou?
I worked there 13 years from 1969 to 82.
Wow.
And I went there in the middle of year in June in 69. I was in Atlanta working in the Bill Lowry studio called Master Sound Recording. And Columbia hired me out of there in 69, and I almost immediately started working with Billy Sherrill. And I knew if I ever got in that facility, I was going to love Studio B, the old concert, and I did. And I worked there till June of 82 when they closed the studio and gutted it. I did the last recording session in there. We had 15 minutes to go on the last session, and we cut a big hit with John Anderson called Swingin'.
For my listeners that may not know exactly what an engineer and a producer does, tell me exactly what your job was in the
Well,
studio.
mainly there, I was an engineer. So the engineer is responsible for operating equipment and getting it from the studio to the tape, back then. And producer, he's the guy in charge. Later, I was doing some producing. I produced with John Anderson and some other folks, and but that was after Columbia closed, and I was working independent. But producer, he's the guy that works with the artist and is responsible for getting the record.
Mm-hmm.
And generally the producer hires the engineer. And at Columbia, I worked for Columbia, and they would request me because I was so comfortable back there in the old Columbia Bay. We had two studios, and to those that don't know what a Quonset is, if they've seen a World War II movie, they've seen hundreds of them. It's oval metal buildings, and they were called Quonset because they were built in Quonset, New Jersey. And we had 15 minutes to go on that last session, and we cut it swinging, and I had to finish it in another studio. I went into a studio owned by John Loudermilk Jr. called Sound Connection across the alley in the building behind Columbia to finish the album. But I was mad because I made it 2 years old and I'd still be there making records. That's how much I love that old room. And I get a call after they gutted it and made office cubicles out of it. And they were going to have a reception. You want to come? And I was mad. I said, no, I'm not going to come. I'm working because I was working independent then. And so we about a year and a half later, they did another renovation. Well, I was less mad, but then I get another call. We had another renovation, and we got some memorabilia to the fact it was a studio. Would you like to come? Well, I wanted to come. We had two great studios, real good mastering rooms, and a mixed room with the overdub booth and shop. Everything goes with a great studio operation. And I wanted to see what they'd done with all these places.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm down there in the talking young lady in her cubicle that designed the sleeves that went in the CDs. And I talked to her a few minutes about what she did. And I noticed on her wall 4 giant Patsy Cline posters. And I asked her, are you a Patsy Cline fan? Because Patsy was dead probably before she was born. She said, oh, I just love those old records. They're so great. And I said, young lady, come with me. And I counted the steps from her cubicle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I said, stand right there. She said, what's this? I said, young lady, you're standing right where Patsy Cline made all those great records.
Wow.
That's what's gone. She had goosebumps on her arm, and she had no clue where she was. I told her.
That's amazing.
No telling how many hits were cut in that room through the years. I mean, just thousands probably.
What were some of the first recordings that you worked on when you started there?
In Columbia?
Yes.
Well, I worked on the Tammy Wynette right off. Your Good Girl's Gonna Go Bad. If you watch the Showtime movie, George and Tammy, they had that song in there. We did that one in there. And I worked with David Houston. I worked with Lynn Anderson. When I went to work for Columbia, they had closed to outside business. The Columbia producers, there were so many labels wanting to record in there. Mercury and Capitol and United Artists and Decca Moen still doing all this stuff in there. And the Columbia producers went to the head of the label and said, we'd like to have the studio to ourselves. We can't hardly get in our own studio. So they closed it. Well, that opened up. It's a long story, but it caused me to get hired because Owen had hired Jim Williamson away from Columbia to work at his barn because Jack Clement had hired Charlie Fallon away from Owen to build the Jack Clement studio. And so Columbia, they talked to me the year before, but told me if they were going to hire a mastering guy, and then they'd hire me and one of their guys to go full time in mastering. And so it worked out, and I came up there, and Tom Sparkman threw me in there with Billy Sherrill. He was doing Billy's work, and as the engineering supervisor, he wanted to get out of the studio, and so he figured I'd worked good with Billy, and it worked out, and we worked together for 13 years, and then after Columbia, I worked with him some, and then after Columbia closed in 82. Did Behind Closed Doors in there with Charlie Rich and Most Beautiful Girl. And when we recorded Charlie, for the most part, Pete Robbins played the piano and Charlie just sang. And Billy said, I believe Charlie would be more comfortable standing by the piano. And okay. I had Charlie right by the piano, and right across the piano from him was the drums and the bass. And all around behind him was the guitarist, and guitar electric guitar steel. And I had Charlie in the background group right there. So it was a live recording. And we cut Behind Closed Doors, which sold 1.5 million. And cut The Most Beautiful Girl, which sold 5 million, and the album did 10 million. And Billy said, from then on, I'm cutting everybody there. And so that's what we were doing. And there's another Behind Closed Doors story. Kenny O'Dell wrote that song, great songwriter and artist. We actually cut him on Epic. And I stepped out the back door, be going home one evening, and here comes Kenny up the alley there behind Columbia B. And we stopped and we're talking, and Behind Closed Doors was the hottest record in the country. And I said, what you doing with all that money, Kenny? And he looked at me and said, I'm paying for 9 years of poverty. That's the best answer I ever heard from anybody about music. He was a good guy and a great writer.
Tell me about George Jones and Tammy Wynette. I know you engineered all of their albums, didn't you?
I did just about all the duets that we had down on Epic. They were so great. Both of them, you got two of the greatest singers ever. harmony good, you know, because they'd switch parts. Whoever had the lead, the other one would do the harmony, you know. And and I just love doing George's records and Tammy's records, just the solo stuff. And I was going to tell you when it was closed to outside business, but there were two artists that could sneak in and record. And I'd work with both of them before they came to Columbia and Epic, and that was George Jones and Sonny James. And both of them wound up coming to Columbia and Epic. George came to Epic, and which was one of the Columbia labels, and Sonny came to Columbia, and I continued to work with them.
Wow.
I love working with both of them.
I know you did a lot of George's solo work, you know, what I call really the cream of the crop years for him, the Grand Tour and Picture of Me Without You and Bartender's Blues.
George was really, you know, I've seen the bad sides of George if he was drinking or when he, which wasn't pretty. And then when he got into cocaine, that nearly ruined his great voice. That's the worst part about that drug there, cocaine. It destroys the singer's voice. And but we had two sessions one day, and how George was, and then a 2 and a 6, and there's an hour between. And everybody in the studio went to eat supper except George and I, and we had a cup of coffee. There was a table sitting in the corner of Studio B there, and 2 beach seats. We were sitting there at the table having a cup of coffee, just talking about things. That's what I liked about George. He was just down to earth, you know, talk about whatever. We got to talk about songs, and I said, George, what do you look for in a song you're going to record? George said, oh, it's got it, Luke, plain and simple. It's got to bring fire out of my ass. And I said, how's that, George? He said, I think he said Oklahoma City. Don't hold me to that. But the guy there had a publishing company. I was there to do a show, and we did the show, and after the show, went and got a bite to eat, and went to his office. He wanted to play me some songs. Well, for 2.5 hours, he played me songs and no fire. He said, George, I played you everything I've got. I got one more song, and you might as well hear everything. I don't think it's for you, but you might as well hear it. George said 5 words came out, and fire left 20 feet out of my ass. He said, I feel tears welling up, the grace is on. I said, George, the world heated up when they heard your record of that. and that just shows you how George was. You know, he was a real guy, you know. And,
You engineered, I believe, the I Am What I Am album that he did, which had He Stopped Loving Her Today on it.
Yeah, that's a good story. You want a good story about He Stopped Loving Her Today?
Yeah.
Well, we was recording George, and we got the take, and another little sidelight. Billy Sherrill recorded all this stuff in beat for the most part, and they updated A and put a new console with automation on it, and they did some great improvements out in the room to make records. And Billy said, "I'm going to A. You going with me?" I said, "Billy, I love it down here so much. You'd have to chain me and drag me up there." And so Ron Reynolds, also known as Ron Snake Reynolds, he died this last year. He was became his engineer, but Billy had come knocking on my door down there. I think sometimes when he had something he really felt strong about. And so we was cutting George, and we got the tape. He turned to Millie Kirkham, the beautiful high soprano voice that sang with the Jordanaires. It was Millie and the Jordanaires on the session. And said, "Millie, do that high obligato part in the bridge." Millie looked at Billy and said, "You don't want a high part. You want a lower part." He said, "We'll do it." And so when she did it, we all knew Millie knew what she was talking about. Well, we get to the mix later on, after the strings were overdone, George touched up the vocal. And Billy off, I want that Millie part in the bridge. I want you to mix it with Millie and without. And I'll listen, I'll get MCR mastering guy to do it both ways, and I'll go off the disc reference, which one I want. Well, we all knew going in, I did, that which one he was going to take. And we had a gal down in engineering that was the secretary in the engineering office, and it was her job to keep track of all the tapes. And her name was Jenny Smith. And Jenny was to keep track of all the tapes and all the Columbia Epic paperwork related to the engineering side, and also expedite the cutting of the parts that went to the plant. And if Jimmy lost the tape, she'd get fired. And we was at quitting time one evening, and Jenny called me aside. Lou, he said, I got a problem. I think I lost the George Jones tape. She was just frightened. She knew she was going to get fired because she'd lost the George Jones tape. I said, Jenny, what's the name? What's the name of this George Jones song you're looking for? She said, it's With Millie on the Bridge. And I laughed out loud. She said, what's funny? I said, Jenny, you're the only one in the building who doesn't know who Millie is and know what a bridge is. That's not the title of the song. It's telling you which cut if you stop loving her today, you damn bastard, you shipped. And she had a sigh of relief that was unreal. She knew she'd been saved. And so that's a little side story to the release of He Stopped Loving Her Today. Boy, that's a great record.
Yeah.
Another record that Billy hired me to do after Columbia closed was to do the vocal on the Who's Gonna Fill Her Shoes.
Oh, wow.
He called me up and said, I got an important vocal with George, and we're going to be working in a strange studio, and you cut so many hits with him, I think it'd be good to have a familiar voice and bass there with him. So we did the vocal on Who's Gonna Fill Her Shoes. I knew that was going to be a great record, but he sang the heck out of it.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I worked with Haggard.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about Merle Haggard. I know that you worked with him a lot, especially in later years, too, where he was working in Tennessee album, and his first Christmas album, too. Your name is right on the back of that. I'm looking right at it. And
well, I did, there in Columbia B, he was still on Capitol, and we had opened back up to Outside Business. And the first record I did with him was It's Not Love, But It's Not Bad.
Oh, yeah.
Hank Cochran in Arkansas. And he lived the way I mixed, and we were recording one night. This is an interesting story. We were recording one night, and we'd done one song about 20, 30 minutes, put it to bed, a good album cut. And he whooped this good one out there. And you can tell that song, when you got a great singer like that, a good song just brings it out of the players. And you can tell they all moved up on the front of their chairs, and we worked it up about 10 or 15 minutes. Roll the tape. Let's cut it. We did. Play it back. We don't have to do that again. Started playing it back and got about a third of the way in, and it dropped out. Dropped out 3 times. Bang. I know the tape. I've never seen this problem on a roll of 2-inch recording tape in my life. Since and before since, however you want to say that. The oxide and the backing was off in those 3 places, about the size of a quarter, right in the middle of the tape. You could see through it like a window pane. He went ballistic, and we calmed him down. I put another roll on there, and believe me, we checked it, make sure there wasn't a bad spot in it. There wasn't. I thought the second take was better. He called me aside later in the session and said, Louie, I want to apologize for going crazy a while ago. I said, well, heck, that's kind of an act of God. I said, I've never seen that problem before. And he said, well, that had nothing to do with it. He said, 2 years ago, I cut this song at Bradley's barn, and the tape got lost between here and California. I cut it last year at the Capitol Tower, and it got erased. I said, I can see why you spooked, Tag. I get a call about 5 or 6 months later. I'm on a 10 o'clock session down there in B. And I get a call, and it's Fuzzy Owen, his manager-producer. I said, Lou, we've cut that song again out at Buck Owens Studio, and we're headed east do some shows, and we're going to pass through Nashville this afternoon. Can we get in there with you and get you to overdub Johnny Gimble on the fiddle and mix it? I said, I think so, because I had a full-blown session going at 10, but at 2 I had a remix session with Billy Sherrill. And I knew I could possibly get him to move that. Then I had come in there, and he did. So that delayed that record probably 2, maybe 3 years, 3.5 years to initially would have come out. And it hit the airwaves about Thanksgiving. And we had a bad recession going on. You could drive from Franklin south of Nashville to Hendersonville north of Nashville on a Sunday afternoon back then, maybe see 5, at the most 10 semis, and now you see 150. You know, that's how slow the economy was. And it was about Thanksgiving. And that record was If We Make It Through December.
Wow.
And something was watching that record. I worked with him there at Columbia and up through 82.
Mm-hmm.
And the last record I did with him there was a Christmas album with the Bill Walker Orchestra. He actually wasn't there. He had the flu and flew back to California, and Curtis Young sang his part, and we sent him the tape out there. And we were supposed to get it back to mix it. They decided they'd mix it out there. And it was a good Christmas album that he did on Epic. And then about 10 years went by, and he had left Epic and was on different labels, and I got a call from him. He said, I want to redo 40 number ones I've had, and I'd like you to come out here and do it with me. And I said, I'd like to do that. And so Sony wanted a package of masters that they could pedal, because they just owned a lot of the songs. They had bought Buck Owens Company, they had Alex Early stuff, and they bought his Shade Tree Music publishing company, and they had the later stuff. And so they wanted a package of masters that they could pedal, and they probably sold 80 or 90 albums out of that package to different people, you know.
Yeah.
And he told me when we got about halfway through that, he said, when you get tired of coming to him, and then 94, and I kept going out there till more or less hung it up in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a great singer, and I love working with him. I'd like to cut out of Bradley's Barn, because we could sneak in there. We'd book it under some fictitious name. I can't remember now what we called him. And because Haggard in the studio could draw 100 people, which was very disruptive, all these people piling in. And Leon Hobbs, that's how we booked him in.
Ah.
And he fought wars with piano players. And he had somebody like Big Robbins, and of course Mark Urey that worked with him, and Glenn Harden that played on his early Capitol. We introduced him to him, Captain. Her name now is Catherine Marks. She's married to Terry Marks, a great guitar player at the Opry and Sessions. And she's just a great, tasteful piano player. And we were cutting out of Bradley's Barn, and she wasn't available, so we was cutting without a piano. We were doing an album of theater music songs, you know. It's a great publishing company, Ralph Pierce Company. And we were doing albums, so we were doing an old Stuart Hamlin song called My Mary. All these young bucks that weren't familiar with the song and had the band at the time, so they're struggling with. We didn't have a demo to play. We just had a lead sheet, and they're trying to work it up. I said, there's a guy sitting back in his office. Owen's office was in the back of that building, and he'll show you exactly how this song goes. So I picked up the sheet, used it, and walked back there, and they followed me back there. And I said, Owen, show these young guys how this song goes. And he turned around and played it, and Haggard wandered back there and said, Owen, we're cutting without a piano. Would you like to play with us? He said, yeah. So we hooked up the electric piano one take. We had My Mary, and he said, we're going to do another song. You know, what's that? Time Changes Everything. One take, and we had that one.
With Owen Bradley.
And,
wow.
he took a ride on Time Changes Everything, and Haggard recognized him, as a great Owen Bradley on piano.
Tell me a little bit about Ernest Tubb. I know that you were involved in the Legend and Legacy album that Pete Drake put together.
Well, when that was the last album Ernest did, and Pete, and it was really doing a lot of Ernest great songs. And Pete Drake called me up. He said, and the original album was just Ernest, a solo album. Well, Pete clandestinely to Ernest snuck a lot of the great singers in town to make duets with Owen. With Ernest. And he called me up and said, I'm trying to get guys that work with some of these singers, like engineers, to redo the remix on the song. And he said, I got one with Paycheck, and I did all the epic Johnny Paycheck records. And he said, I'd like you to come mix it. So I did. And Pete told me, said, after I got that all done, I called Ernest. I said, come down here and play something. I sat him down there in front of the speakers and turned it loose. He listened to every note and had tears in his eyes. It just thrilled him that all these people made duets with him. He said, and years later, after Ernest had died, Rose Drake, Pete's widow, called me up and said, I want to take those same tapes and make duets with Justin Tubb, his son. I want you to do it. So I was working in the studio at Liberty Hill a lot, so we booked in there. And that was just great working with that, because I got the microscope at one of those things. And I told Justin one day, I said, I always loved your dad singing, but I never microscoped like I've had to do, because I listened to him and got my ideas on how we could do the duets, and Justin had his ideas.
Mm-hmm.
We did it out as we went along, and I said, he's just a great singer. He hit every note. And Justin said, I can tell you what it was. He said, so many people have done imitations of Ernest Tubb in their acts. A lot of people think that's the way Ernest Tubb sounds, and it wasn't. I said, that makes sense to me.
You mentioned Johnny Paycheck. Did you work on the album that he did with Merle Haggard called Mr. Hag Told My Story? It was kind of a tribute album that he did to Merle.
Yeah. We had him out there one time to sing with us on a couple of songs as a duet with Haggard. And we laid down a track of old violin for Hag to do. And Hag wound up making a duet out of it, and coming down in the song, and it just thrilled me to get to work with that. But Paycheck was a great singer. We didn't take this job and shove it, slide off on satin sheets. Only hell my mama ever raised, all those great songs that he did. Boy, he was a good singer.
Yeah, sure was. Well, in your career, was there ever an artist that really never hit the big time that you really thought should have?
I'll tell you a story. We had a singer on Columbia, and he had never had a big hit, and he'd been on there 5 years. And I worked with him in 3 different producers, and Billy Sherrill had taken him over. And I'd worked with him and 2 other producers before that. And he had never had that big hit, so Billy called him in one day, and let's find a song that we really believe in as a hit, and record it however it needs to be done. And if it's a hit, we go on. If not, you go your way, we go our way, because we're spinning our wheels, and it might be hurting you. And he said, okay. Well, we found the song, and we cut it. We had an orchestra in there. We had strings and some horns and everything. And that was Johnny Duncan, and we put Strangers at the Light and Lead Me. And also helped launch Janie Fricke's career. It was obvious she was going to get a record deal somewhere.
Yeah.
she was a background singer and was such a great singer. And she stepped out of the group and sang the duet with him on that, and just killed it. And I think that was the deciding factor, tipped the scales to getting a record deal for her, you know. And, I love that record. Stranger Set Out the Lights and Leave Me.
Yeah, that's a good one.
We had 5 or 6 hits with Johnny after that. And,
was there ever an artist that you never got a chance to work with and you wish you would have?
oh, I never got to work with Conway Twitty. Or I never got to work with Reba McEntire.
Well, you sure covered a lot of good ones, though.
Worked with all those great players. I do a presentation down at the old Columbia B sometimes for folks, get a group of folks. They want history, and so I give them a history of recording and a history of Nashville recording and a history of where they are, which is ground zero for Music Row. And then, of course, of that presentation, I get to talk about session players. And a session player is a unique individual as a musician. Heard Bill Russell, the great basketball player, being interviewed one time on a program, and he made a statement that just nailed it for me for session players. He said, if you want to watch a great basketball player, watch him when he doesn't have the ball. And that statement right there describes a lot of the great session players, particularly guitar players. You can go down on Broadway here with 1,000 honky tonks down there and find you guitar players do you to death playing solos. If the guitar is a featured item, but if it's not, he's lost. He don't know what to do. Well, the great session players, it's not their time in the chair. They just along for the ride on that record, but the great ones figure out something to add to the record, you know. And that's true of all the other instruments. If it's a fiddle steel song, and the electric guitar player, he doesn't have much to do, but a great one to figure out something that would really add to the record, you know.
That's right.
It's not a steel song, and great steel players would figure something to do, and piano players, whatever, you know. I got to record Marty Robbins and Lefty Frizzell, and Marty had been on the label when I came there in '69, but I didn't get to work with him. And then he left and wandered around in the wilderness on 2 or 3 labels. Then he came back to Columbia, and Billy Sherrill was going to produce it. So we're down there in Columbia B, about to get recorded. Grady Martin's on the section, and I'm micing him. He's playing this old funky-looking 6-string, steel string acoustic guitar, F-hole acoustic guitar. And it's a little smaller. And I learned later they call that a parlor size guitar. It's not a miniature guitar, but I said, what's this? This is the one I played on El Paso and all them records. It belongs to Marty, and he wanted me to play it. And he started playing it, and I knew that was the guitar. And so we cut El Paso City, which was a reprise song that Marty had written about El Paso. And it was a big hit for Marty. You know, I enjoyed working with him. He was a good guy and a great singer. Haggard always had a dog that was his dog, and he liked those little fox terriers. And that dog had house privileges, and we're sitting in his den, and his dog at that time was this little female dog who was quite old, and her name was Gussie, and Gussie was sitting over in the corner of the den, just minding her own business. Haggard said, "What's Gussie?" And he reached over and turned to Lefty Frizzell's You Babe, a loose song called You Babe. Gussie hopped up, ran over, got between the speakers, and started singing with Lefty. I said, "Well, Haggard, only you would have a dog that liked and would sing with Lefty Frizzell." He said, "She likes that song. I've recorded it in the album, and I can play mine, and she sings with me." I said, "That's
That's great.
I said I can tell you something else about that Lefty Frizzell record. I recorded it, and I really like Lefty.
Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you sharing your stories, and it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Well, let's talk again. I got plenty more.
Oh, I look forward to that. Thank you so much. That is Lou Bradley, folks. We're going to play some of these great songs that we talked about with Lou tonight as we continue with My Kind of Country.